Hello, everyone, and welcome to another success story of e-GMAT. Today, we have with us Sanchay, who has scored a 720 with a V40 and a Q49. So, welcome, Sanchay, and thank you for joining in today.
Thank you, Abha. First of all, a big thanks to you for helping me out in the last 2-3 months.
Oh, thanks, Sanchay. So, Sanchay, why don't you introduce yourself and give us a little bit about your background and how did you decide to go for a GMAT at this point?
So I'm basically an engineer, and my
Okay.
GMAT journey actually started last year with 2 attempts in which I couldn't get my target score. So
Okay.
this year I again reattempted GMAT, but with a structured approach this time. And
Mm.
thanks to you, since the last 2-3 months we have been in touch with each other. Finally, I
Yes.
was able to achieve my target score. Not exactly target, but close to my target score.
Yes. So, Sanjay, I think the credit actually belongs to you because you were a student who was willing to take those steps that help you to get to your target, right? So, you mentioned that this was your third attempt, right?
Yeah.
So, let's start from the beginning where you really
Yeah.
decided you want to take the GMAT. So,
Yeah.
I believe your first attempt was in 2011 and it was in somewhere around November
21.
21.
2021. Yeah.
2021, in November, you took your first attempt,
Yes.
right? So,
Yes.
what was your score back then?
So it was a 690 with a Q50 V32.
Okay. And after that, you did the course, you started doing the course, you joined the course. So, what led you to the e-GMAT platform? How did you narrow down that you wanted us to be selected as a test prep company?
So first of all, it was more sort of a feedback which came from my friends as well, scrolling through the internet, going on platforms like GMAT Club. So there was only one option. Everybody suggested that you should take the e-GMAT platform because it follows sort of a structured approach, and the mocks, the Sigma mocks which you guys have, it is almost the pattern is very similar to the
Hmm.
actual GMAT exam. And finally, the score which I got, it is also actually the same. I was constantly getting a Q49, V40, V41, and
Yeah,
finally also I
yeah.
got the same.
Yes, that's true. That's true. So, Sanjay, let us walk through your journey, right? Little bit. So, you attempted your exam in to the 2021. You were done
Last
with
year.
that last year, November. Then you come this year. You go through the course, right? So, let's talk about what was the learning that you got from the course because you had your scores in hand, right? You had a 690. You know where you are starting, and that's the same score you used to create your personalized study plan as well, right?
Correct.
So, what was your approach this time towards the course? How did you go about doing the course?
So this time my approach was more sort of on the test readiness. I was sure that I have the ability to get a 730 or 740, but just it was not coming.
Hmm.
Even the last attempt when I got a 690, just 3 to 4 days before that, I got a 730 in the official mocks. So I was pretty
Hmm.
confident I would be getting around 710, 720.
Okay.
But I
Okay.
don't know why I was not able to hit that score in the actual GMAT. So
Hmm.
so even when I took this GMAT account in, I think, around April first week or March last week, I
Yeah.
was more focused on the test readiness. I was more focused on practicing questions on the Scholaranium, building that error log, what I'm doing wrong, what I'm doing correct, and
Hmm.
how to sort of maintain that timing. And the most important, how to maintain your nerves in
Yeah.
the in the GMAT exam.
True. So, since you mentioned about the error log, right? So, let's get into a little bit detail because when you move from subsection to subsection, you are definitely maintaining an error log, right? So, what
Yes.
was your error log format like, and how did you go about revision of the error log or the notes when you move from different subsections?
So first of all, I created a note. I created one note. My comprehensive notes were in one note.
Okay.
So using the e-GMAT platform, first of all those specific topics where I fumbled a lot. Let's say,
Hmm.
for example, in the SCA, I was not very good. I was not performing very well in the parallelism and the modifier.
Okay.
Uh,
Okay.
so these topic, I made my notes very comprehensive.
Hmm.
That
Hmm.
when is a verb ing modifier used, when is a verb plus ed modifier used.
Yeah.
So that was a comprehensive notes which I created. And
Hmm.
the error log, if you are asking, the error log also I created topic wise,
Okay.
not exactly
Okay.
in the format, which e-GMAT prefers, but
Okay.
it was
Okay.
more sort of a personalized error log which I created, that these are the topics
Okay.
and these are the questions where
Okay.
I fumbled. And
Okay.
then I found a pattern that I am fumbling in a specific set of questions.
Okay.
So
Okay.
that was more sort of my approach. And in quant, I did not create an error log. I was confident that I would be getting a Q49 or Q50.
Okay. 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 That sounds nice. That sounds so. When you say that you were able to identify the topics, right? So, are you talking about like topics, specific modifiers, parallelism, or are you talking about the steps that you were actually faltering in that you were able to identify?
Steps as well. Steps are the
Hmm.
most important part. For
Hmm.
example, in the verb ing modifier, what is an action modifier? What is when is the modifier actually acting as a result, or the how part? All these
Yeah.
steps I was able to get when I created that error log.
Okay. Okay. So, Sanjay, you have done our complete verbal course, right? You have
Yeah.
done our SC, CR, RC, and you have actually moved to the cementing as it was meant to be, right?
Yes. Yes.
So, when you talk about the SC, because you have attempted GMAT before as well, right? So, this
Yes.
time when you attempted the course and specifically the verbal part, let's talk about the areas that actually led to the improvement. What were the steps that you earlier used to take while solving any question? And how did
Mhm.
your approach change this time that made this improvement?
So first of all, the basic improvement or the basic change which I did was in specifically three modules. First of all,
Okay.
in SC, I was really bad in modifiers and parallelism.
Okay.
So this time, what actually helped me was there is the foundation program, the foundation where you build that structure of a sentence, right?
Oh,
The
you're referring
the
to master
subject,
comprehension
the
here.
master comprehension
Yes.
one.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So my first note was built upon the learnings of that master comprehension,
Okay.
because earlier
Okay.
what used to happen was, let's say the sentence is three sentences or four sentences long.
Hmm.
By the time I come to the fourth line, I was not able to comprehend well that what exactly is this sentence meaning.
Understood.
But
Understood. Because it's so lengthy, you were not able
yes,
to
yes,
break it
yes,
down
but
properly. Yeah.
yes, but what I did this time was I only identified the verb and the subject for that.
Hmm. Okay.
And
Okay.
let's say there is a subject, there is a modifier line of, let's say, one or two lines for that. So
Yeah.
I ignored that line. I immediately gone from the subject to the verb and then to the final underlined portion.
Okay.
So I was able to connect well that okay, this is the meaning of that sentence.
Okay. Okay.
even
Got
in
it.
my error even in my error log, one of the things which I observed was, based upon your error log, the template, my most
Yes.
of the
Yes.
errors were meaning based errors. it was not a
Okay.
it was not
Hmm.
an error based upon that I didn't have the ability or what, but it
Hmm.
was more sort of that
Understood.
I was not able to get the meaning well.
Okay.
Somewhere in those lines I was I forgot the meaning, what actually the sentence is meaning.
Understood. So you were trying to say that previously you were more focused on the grammar part, basically, is it
Yes,
for the
yes,
SC?
yes,
And then you
yes,
realize that it's not just about the grammar, that there's a
yes,
whole lot
yes,
of bigger picture where you focus
yes,
on the meaning that actually
yes,
worked for you.
yes,
Okay,
yes.
great. And what about CR and RC? What was your approach? Because you have done the course. So what were the things that you learned that, benefited you in this section specifically?
So CR, I was always struggling in assumptions part,
Okay.
and somewhat in the bold phase, but
Okay.
more, but mostly in the assumption part. So in assumption part, what approach I followed was, let's say there are five options. I
Hmm.
negated all the options and only focused on the final conclusion. If
Okay. Okay.
if negation of the statement is leading to breakdown of the conclusion or not, I
Okay.
focused only on this part, nothing
Hmm.
else.
Hmm.
This was the
Okay.
major drawback which I was not following in my previous attempts.
Okay. So previously, what were you doing when you were taking the tests or the quizzes?
Previously, actually, I was sort of lost in between.
Hmm. Okay. Understood. Yeah.
And there was always a confusion between the best of the two options, that which one is actually breaking down the conclusion or not. And more often than not, it turned out to be that x statement is actually hitting the premise, not the conclusion.
Hmm. Okay.
And I yeah, so what I did was, let's say there is a 5 6 sentence long CR question.
Yeah.
I wrote down my conclusion, a small, let's say only 2 3 words of the conclusion. I wrote down in a side scratch pad,
Hmm.
and then when
Hmm.
I was reading through the options, I was
Hmm.
only focusing whether any of these option is related to the conclusion or not. Just this, nothing else.
Understood. Understood. And what about RC? Like, because now since you've done the SC and CR, most of your concepts and how to read the sentence or break the sentence are almost clear, right? So is there
Right.
something particularly that you added for the RC part? Because
RC was, I think RC was more sort of built up after I did the CR module, because the inference questions and
Yeah.
what is the main point of the passage, all those points are actually covered when you go through the CR section.
Right.
The only questions in which I struggled in RC were the primary, what is the primary purpose of the passage, those questions.
Okay.
So rather than going through the passage and reading it in a one go, what I did was I summarized each of the passage and wrote down the summary points in a side scratch pad.
Okay. So when you say
That the
summary points, is it more like keywords that you were using? Like
Yes,
some
keywords.
shortcuts or abbreviations,
Yes,
keywords types?
yes.
Okay.
So the first paragraph I just wrote down, let's say a first paragraph is summarizing what exactly is the background of the next three paragraphs. So I just wrote down background. The next point, the reasons. The next point was implications. And then I
Okay.
summarized in my words and then cross-checked with the 5 options.
Got it. So, Sanjay, you have done the course as it was supposed to be, right? You have done
Yes.
the subsections, then you move to the cementing, right?
Yes.
So, when we talk about cementing, what is this whole stage about, and how did it add value to your preparations?
So actually, what I'll suggest is, let's say your preparation is for a duration of 4 to 5 months, let's say.
Yeah.
So I
Okay.
think two months should be dedicated to completion of the GMAT course, which is there on the platform. The rest 3 months should actually be dedicated towards cementing and the Sigma quizzes, Sigma mocks.
Okay.
Because
So when
where I faltered in my previous attempts was, my whole preparation was for 4 months, but 3.5 months I was doing the course, and only half month, for only 15-20 days I was actually doing the cementing quiz and the error log part.
Okay. So cementing, when you didn't do last time like properly, it reflected in your scores, right? But this time you are trying to say essentially is that as you do the course, you do the cementing, you give equal importance to both so that you can increase your ability, right?
Yes, actually this time I gave more importance to the quizzes.
Right. Because
That's when,
concepts you had already gone through previously.
yes.
Yeah.
Even I was always questioning that whether I can attempt my GMAT on the last week of July or last week of August. You're always saying, no, do this month, do X number of quizzes more.
Yeah.
Again, do this mock.
Yeah, I think the major reason for me asking you to do those quizzes again was because I knew that, okay, you're reaching that ability, but to be short, we can't take that risk, right? So I always wanted you to practice more because by this time your concepts were clear. It was only the practice that would help you improve your ability because every time you practice, you go back to the questions, you see what you have gone wrong, right? So what was the review pattern that you would follow? Because I know by the end, we were mainly focusing on the quizzes, right? Because that was essentially our theme. By this time, the concepts were clear, process and timing focused, right? So what was your review pattern and how did you go about, making sure that you are doing everything in the correct time phase? Was there a particular strategy or steps that you were making sure to do that?
So timing was never a difficult thing for me. I was always maintaining the decent time which has to be given, except for some questions which you mentioned as well. That in some particular modules I was taking more than 2 minutes or 2.5 minutes. But apart from that, timing was not an issue for me. The main issue was applying that meaning based approach in the actual setup.
Okay.
Where I was only faltering on this particular step, that because there were so many questions, somewhere down the line, let's say in the 14th or the 15th question, I was not able to follow that structured approach.
So how did you go about doing it then? Because see, while doing the mocks, you started realizing, right? This is one step that is going a little off for you. So did you do something extra to make sure that, you are still able to get it through the correct questions, but within the good timing also?
No, I would say it was more sort of a change in mindset. I only kept in mind that be confident, timing is not an issue for you. It is only the meaning based approach which you are not following that is leading to poor scores. So when I knew that next question, this SC question is related to parallelism and modifier, and I knew that this is the area where I falter the most. So it was sort of more precaution. I took more precaution that this is the subject, this is the verb, and this is the meaning of the sentence, and now analyze the 5 options, which is that option which is actually fitting in that parallelism or the modifier part.
Yes. So when you were talking about Sanchay, the mocks part, right? So you are done with the course, you are done with the cementing, you are showing good abilities, right? Now we move to the mocks. Now continuously in your first 2 mocks that you attempted, you got a 730 and a 740. right?
Yes.
With the
Yes.
Q49 being constant. And I think
Yes.
in one you scored a V41 and one in V40, right? I think that
Yes.
was the score, right? So
Yes.
then you went and you took your first attempt, right?
Yes.
And how did that go? And what are the mistakes that you did that, really got you back on track?
So my first attempt, you're talking about the previous one, the last year one, or this year's?
This year one, when you took the attempt this
Yeah, so it was around 10-12 days back that I took the GMAT online. It was in the online mode.
year. Okay.
So the structure I followed was the same, but even I'm not not sure how it turned out to be a disaster for me.
Hmm.
But I
Hmm.
think back of the mind, it actually kept me tickling that some proctor is constantly observing me, and that I was
Yeah.
not very comfortable, I would say, in the online setup.
Hmm.
That is the only thing after finishing my exam which I realized that maybe I was not confident or very comfortable with the proctor setup.
Hmm. Hmm. So this time when you went, you went for a completely offline one, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes,
And it was within those 10-12 days gap itself.
yes,
So
yes.
what did you do? Like you got that 690, you got back. And so what was your approach after that? How did you go about doing the 10 days from like the middle 10 days?
So the 10 days mostly were, first of all, I knew that I have the ability. I don't have to
Hmm.
do anything extra. It was only about the exam readiness and only about those 3.5 hours in which I have to keep my calm and focus on the meaning based approach. I
Hmm.
have to, I kept reminding me of myself that you have the ability. You just have to keep your nerves calm in those 3.5 hours and follow the structured approach, which I have been following in the mocks.
Yeah.
Because even before my attempt on 21st, even just before that I got a 740 with the same
Yes.
scores,
Yes.
Q49 V41.
Yeah.
So that sort of again confirmed that I have the ability. It is more only about the mindset.
Yeah, yeah. So now you're on D-Day, right? You are writing your exam. So how did you go about the sequence and what was your approach to your exam this time?
So the sequence was always the same. I always used to always used to attempt the verbal first, because I
Okay.
thought verbal is that sort of gray area for me. So
Hmm.
with a fresh mindset, I should first attempt the verbal portion and then move to the quants, which has always been my stronger point.
Hmm. Okay.
So the only change which I did this time was I took a took an 8-9 hour sleep before the exam.
Hmm. Okay.
Went with a very relaxed mindset that okay,
Hmm.
I have paid the fees. Even if I get a 650 this time, it doesn't make any difference.
Hmm.
The only change was go with a relaxed mind, nothing else.
Yeah, I think the mindset was majorly a little
Yes,
hindrance for you, I think, during the
yes,
mocks as well, right?
yes,
I
yes, yes.
Yeah, and I think many people go through this because you are openly speaking this and now you've achieved your target as well. You've got a 720, you are satisfied. So I'm sure many people go through this journey of, they have the ability, but because the nerves kick in, they are not able to perform, right? So I think a
Yes,
good
yes,
night's sleep really worked for you this time because you took that rest and you were able to do that, right? So
yes,
Sanjay, because it's been a good amount of journey for you, right? You started last year, then you took a break because of some official reasons, and you again started your preparation, right?
yes,
So, were
yes.
there any mistakes that you committed during this time frame where, like, if given a chance again, you would completely try to avoid those mistakes this time?
The first mistake would be not to focus on the quiz, which I did actually. I
Okay.
actually focused more on the finishing the course part and less on attempting the quizzes,
Hmm.
which
Okay.
actually turned out to be my most weak area when you see. So
Okay.
I was on the only difference this time was the exam readiness and the mental makeup. The
Hmm.
ability was always there. Even just before my last year's attempt, I got a 730. So the ability
Yeah.
was there,
Yeah.
but it was more sort of practicing more questions and getting that mindset. So
Yes.
I
Yes.
would recommend that what I mentioned earlier, that finish your course. Let's say 33% or 40% of the time should be dedicated to finishing of the course, and the rest 50-60% should be
Hmm.
dedicated in attempting the mocks, attempting the scholaranium quizzes, and
Yeah.
getting that iterative process done.
Hmm. Yeah. Getting your accuracy right. Right.
Yes, yes,
Yeah,
yes, yes.
yeah, okay. And if you would have to give, because now you are done with the 720, right? Your GMAT is kept aside. So have you
Yes.
really started your applications process yet, or are you about to start?
I would be starting next week. first of all, I'm very relaxed right now, so I'm enjoying this weekend.
Yeah, sure, sure. You should definitely you should, because I think it's been a good bout of hectic
Yes,
months in together where you have been putting in the preparation, right? And
yes,
going through the
yes,
course, doing cementing, mock. So it takes a lot. It takes a lot,
yes,
right?
yes.
So if you have to say like a suggestion or a guidance to someone, right, who is just starting his GMAT preparation from a
Mhm,
similar score like yours, right?
mhm.
Because I think when you took the GMAT last year, you said that you landed up at a 690, right? In
Yes, yes,
2021 as well?
yes, yes, in
Yes.
2021.
Yeah, yeah. And that time also you had taken the e-GMAT course, right?
Yes, yes, yes.
Yes. But that time you just did the course. I think this time it was more about the cementing that you missed out, right? Yeah. So what would be that one suggestion that you would like to give other people who are just starting up, they are on
Mhm,
completely zero scale, a suggestion or a
mhm,
tip that really worked for you?
mhm. So one suggestion would be that, let's say if you're planning to apply in next 3 or 4 months,
Yeah.
try to try to start your preparation 6 months in advance, because you never know what work exigencies are there which are coming in between. So even for me,
Okay.
I thought of finishing up my GMAT process by the last week of July, but it turned out to be
Hmm.
it stretched for one good 1 2 months, right?
Yeah.
So
Yes.
given an option, I would have started, let's say, in February rather than in April this time.
Okay. Okay. So it's always better to start, like keep that
Or
buffer time, right?
starter,
Because
yes, keep that
specifically if
buffer
you're
time.
a working professional, you never
Yes,
know
yes,
if some
yes,
commitment steps in, right? Okay. And
yes.
what were the commitment of hours that you were putting in, Sanchay, throughout this time?
So on weekdays it would be about 2 hours, 2 or 2 to 3 hours,
Hmm.
and on weekends it would range from 4.5 hours.
4.5 hours. Is it okay? And were you consistently giving these hours any which way, like every day you'll make sure that you're putting in the efforts?
No, no.
Hmm.
Actually, to be very honest, no. Because of my work commitments, there used to be stretches of 6 7 days where I was not even able to open my GMAT account.
Okay. Okay.
But what I did during that time was, when I was traveling to my office, I
Yeah.
used to have my notes on OneNote. So I used to
Okay.
open that and revise my weaker areas, like the modifier component or the parallelism module, or just the
Okay.
master comprehension module. So I used
Got
to
it.
revise those.
Got it, got it. So even when you were completely like you thought you can't practice or put in the efforts, you were still revising to a certain extent, right?
Yes, yes,
So you
yes,
were
yes,
keeping yourself in touch constantly, trying to keep
yes.
yourself
Trying to keep in
rather.
touch. I won't say I was regular,
Yeah.
but I made sure that the gap did not exceed, at any particular point of time. It did not exceed 1 week.
Hmm. Hmm.
Surely there were days where I was not able to spend even 1 hour on the GMAT platform or on revising.
Yeah,
But I
true.
made sure I make this up on the weekends.
Okay. Okay. And so when you got back from a break, how did you go about it? Did you go back and revise what you previously did and then moved forward?
Yes, first of all, I revised all the modules. I had
Okay.
made my notes on all the modules, the CRSC and the RC module.
Hmm.
So first of all, I revised those, and then I went with the mindset that this time I have to focus on the quiz part and the test readiness, because
Okay.
that's in those 3 months I realized that this was the area where I was faltering.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So when you say test readiness, what does it exactly mean? Because quizzes you were taking previously as well, right? You
Mhm,
were taking
mhm,
subsectional quizzes. You were doing
mhm,
cementing also. There also you took up the quizzes, right?
mhm.
So what was this gray area test readiness that you focused really on deeply this time?
So my particular specific gray area was, uh, let's say when I'm solving a quiz without the
Yeah.
timings.
Okay.
Let's say the application quizzes,
Okay.
right? So in the application quizzes, I was following the specific approach which GMAT suggests, that follow a
Okay.
meaning based approach, get the verbs sorted, then find out the subjects for them. But somewhere in the scholarinium quizzes, when the timer
Hmm.
was ticking,
Yeah.
somewhere down the line, I used to deviate from that approach.
Okay. Okay.
So that was the biggest mistake I think I was doing.
Hmm. Hmm. So
And I
was it because
focused.
you were focusing too much on the time that you could not focus on the process at that point?
Yes, 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 yes.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
Although I knew the timing was not an issue for me, but still I
Yes.
don't know why during the quiz it came in my mind that the timer is ticking, the timer is ticking, you have to keep a note of that. And
Yeah.
because of that, somewhere because of nervousness, I was not able to follow that structured approach.
Okay. Okay. And what, like, were you having a similar problem in mocks, and how did you deal with that? Because timing is always there, right? There
Yes,
is no
yes,
point in GMAT where you can just give up the timing and do it at your own
yes,
pace. Because the
yes,
quizzes need to be timed. That's how you will be able to ace it
yes,
also at the end,
yes,
right?
yes,
So how
right.
did you actually then come over this timing issue of yours, or this constant fear of, this time is ticking and
Mhm.
I need to prove myself?
So this actually, this fear actually went away when you suggested me so many scholarinium quizzes. So
Okay. Okay.
after a lot of practice, I came to know that when I'm following the structured approach, my timing isn't getting affected. The
Hmm.
timing is
Okay.
remaining the same, and actually it's improving. When
Okay.
I'm following that structured approach, let's say previously I was solving a question, let's say in 2 minutes.
Yeah.
By following a structured approach, by just focusing on the subject and the verb, I'm
Hmm.
actually finishing the question in 1 minute 40 seconds.
Okay.
So
Okay. Yes.
I just kept that in my mind, that follow the approach, you will definitely save 20 seconds.
Yes. 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 So, see, Sanjay, like, let's talk about when you got back from the part, right? Because many people have this gap because of their professional or personal
Mhm.
commitment, right? So you did the course last year, right? And then you attempted the GMAT. You were able to get a 690, right? So
Right.
what was your initial starting score? Do you recall your Sigma X mock?
The first Sigma X mock which I gave was without any preparation, any sort of
Yes.
preparation.
Yes.
Just to get a head start where I'm actually standing. So I think it was 620 or 630, if I'm not wrong.
Okay, so it was 620 and 630. Then you
Yes,
did the course, you attempted the exam, and then the break
yes,
came in, right?
yes,
Now, this
yes.
time when you started the preparation, how did you do the entire course again, or did you go through certain particular files and then you move to the cementing? How did you go about the structure this time?
So my approach was, first I revised all my notes which I had made the last time.
Okay,
The
okay.
step one was this. Step two was identifying my those gray areas where I was faltering the most. So I'm
Hmm.
regularly mentioning parallelism as one, modifiers was
Yes,
another, and
yes.
subject verbs was another.
Okay, okay. And these
And
areas you could identify how? By going through your error log? Like you could
yes,
identify that
yes,
these are something that
yes.
you're commonly going
Through
wrong in?
through the error logs, and also when you're seeing those questions, you have that sort of fear कि अरे parallelism आ गया.
Understood. Yes, yes, yes. Right.
That fear was always there. So I knew कि if you are having that fear, means you're not confident. So I knew
True.
that I have to revise those modules again. So this time
Hmm.
I only revised those modules where I was faltering the most.
Okay. Okay. So last year you built your concept, you gave the exam. This year, when you
Yes,
got back after a break, the first thing
yes,
that you did was revise, right?
revise.
Revise your
Yes,
concepts, build your ability, and then you
yes,
started with the mocks again.
yes, yes, yes.
Okay, okay, great. So I think this really, I think this is very essential point because many people, when they start with the GMAT, like you said, you have to keep the buffer time, right?
Yes,
You can't
yes,
just put a deadline for yourself. So let's
yes.
talk about the date this time, right? Because you
Mhm.
have given GMAT last year, so you have an idea on how the whole thing looks, right? You've
Yes,
experienced it front end. So how did you
yes.
come about deciding a date for yourself this time? Like, what are the factors that you really consider while deciding a date?
So actually, I left it on you that when
Hmm.
I should attempt the exam. To be very honest, I left it on you. That
Yeah.
whenever you will say that Sanjay, you have the test readiness, you now have the ability to go and attempt. I made sure that I'm always constantly mailing you that Abha, should I take the test next week? Should I take the
Yes,
test next week?
yes, yeah,
And you're always mailing me back that no, you have to first take these quizzes as well. You have to take those sectional quizzes again. So
yeah, yes,
I trusted you completely on that part.
yeah. And I
To
think
be
really
very
thank you for that
to
trusting
be
me. Yeah.
to be very honest, the deadline which I kept was July last week. I
Yes,
thought July
yes.
last week I should be attempting my GMAT, but
Hmm,
when you mentioned that you have to take those quizzes, so I
hmm.
completely trusted you that whenever you say that you can now take your test date, I took
Yes,
that date. Yeah.
yes. And was there a difference that you felt in online and offline mode? What was your first attempt? Was it online or offline last
No,
year?
that was offline. That was offline.
That was also offline, right? Okay.
Yes.
So what was the major difference that you felt like if you're going for an in-center exam and an online exam for a student perspective?
Uh, I am particularly more comfortable in the offline setup, because, as
Okay.
I mentioned, in the online setup there is always a proctor which is constantly monitoring you. So it was always sort of at the back of my mind. It was always there is somebody watching you,
Yeah.
and there are GMAT guidelines as well, that there should be no noise, and there should be, your
Yes.
eye should be
Yes.
steady at one point, right? And even in the offline exam, you could take your breaks, though those 8 minutes, two breaks, you can take comfortably. But in the online setup, I don't know why, I read some reviews on the GMAT club as well, that there
Hmm.
were some cases of cancellation of scores because of that.
Okay.
So that was in my back of my mind, but I was more
Hmm.
comfortable in the offline setup.
Offline, you were personally more
Yeah.
comfortable, right?
Yes,
And
yes.
what about mocks? Like, what was your mock strategy? How many mocks did you actually take? Like before your first attempt, like the first attempt, meaning this year, first attempt.
Yes. So before before my this year's attempt, I actually took two mocks.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
The scores was 730 and 740.
Yeah. Right. And these
With
two were both Sigma X mocks only. So you did not take
Yes.
any official
No.
mocks at this point.
No. 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 Not at
Okay.
all.
Okay. And after that 690, within that 10 days, did you take any other mock?
Yes, only one, just one day prior to my exam,
Okay. Okay.
just to get into that exam readiness. I attempted one, got a 740.
Hmm.
So
Okay.
that's when I actually became confident that I have the ability. It is only about the mindset.
Yeah, true. So my last question to you to wrap up this would be that if you are really going for an exam like this, right? You have your strategies, your preparation done, everything done, right? So now constantly you were saying that regularity was something that you were not able to do because of your work, right?
Yes.
So
Yes.
does it all boils down to that even if you're giving that 1 hour, you need to give it productively? Like, because for a
Yes.
person like you who has a busy schedule, it was difficult,
Yes.
right? So some days you
Yes.
would do 1 hour, 2 hours, but you still
Yes.
managed to get a 720. So does it
Yes.
all boil down to the productivity part now?
Yes, the productivity. And what I would suggest is always, let's say, even if you're revising, let's say only 4 lines,
Hmm.
just revise those in a very concise manner, and
Hmm.
don't focus very much on the exam. You would
Hmm.
get extra nervous, and it would reflect in your scores, which actually happened in my case. So
Yeah.
this last week was actually very hectic for me. I was working for 17 and 18 hours.
Yes. Yeah.
So
Right.
this sort of deviation from the GMAT mindset actually helped me in my in my actual exam.
Yeah. Right.
So
Right.
GMAT is not that exam where you would constantly be studying and you would think that increasing the number of hours would result in increasing the score. That is not going to happen.
Yes, understood. So, what was your idea like before the exam? Because 2 days before the exam, what were the things that you were doing? Because I think the last 2 days and 3 days really catch your nerves, right? Those are the
Yes.
things where we start experiencing and getting the thoughts on how do we really go for it? Are we ready? We know we are ready, but at the back of the consciously, we have that thought, right? So, what would you ideally do normally before, like the 2 days before your exam?
So ideally, what I would suggest to all is just 2 days before your exam, all your preparations have been done. There is nothing you can change now. That's the
Yeah.
first thing. So it's
Yes.
more, so get yourself relaxed. Take a good 6 7 8 hours sleep. Don't
Hmm.
focus. Don't don't pay extra attention now to the GMAT process. You have
Yeah.
already done your work, and just
Yes.
try to be calm. Don't think too much about the exam, which is actually the mistake I actually committed.
Hmm. Right, right, right. I think that beautifully wraps up, Sanchay, because I think the last 2 days are very crucial, right? Yes,
Yes.
we have built the ability. You need to trust your ability and
Yes.
your capability that you
Yeah.
are solid, you can do it, right? The
Yes.
only thing you need to do is keep yourself calm and go and give your exam. And I think that
Yes.
completely worked for you. I
Yes.
think yours has been a very beautiful journey because you started from, like you said, a relatively like a 630 or a 640 score, and then
Yes.
you gave a two three tries maybe, but I think the second
Yes.
try we still understand because the nerves kicked in that time, right?
Yes.
And we
Yes.
figured out that, and
Yes.
then you were able to get a
Yeah.
720. So a huge
Yes.
congratulations, Sanchay, on
Thank
that.
you.
and
Thank you so much,
and it
Abha.
was, yeah, and thank you for
And a
joining in
big
today.
and a
Yeah.
big thanks to you. First of all, a big thanks to you, because in the last 2 3 months you have been constantly in touch with me, constantly reminding me that no, you are not ready for the test right now. Even if I was constantly mailing you that, Ava, I have to go for round one applications. So
Yes.
should I take my GMAT? But you were constantly reminding me that no, you have to attempt more quizzes, more mocks,
Yeah,
and
right.
then maybe you can take your
Yeah,
GMAT in the
I
next
think
year.
that's what all comes as part of the strategy part of the e-GMAT, that we want to make sure that if you are giving an exam, you need to be ready, right? And at the
Yes.
back end, we can see the data, we see the points, we can analyze your accounts. So we have a clear understanding that, okay, if you give the exam right now, there is high probability that you might be able to pass or you might not be able to pass, right?
Yes.
So
Yes.
based on
Yes.
that judgment, I was able to help you. But thank you.
Yes.
And I think it all depends upon your credit, Sanchay. But it was really sweet of you to take out the time today and join us today. So thank you for joining
Thank
in,
you.
Sanchay.
Thank you so much, Abha. Thank you so much.